All right, hey guys. We're going to try and record another play session of Atma. So I'm Kevin. I'll be the GM.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Joe.
Cool beans. All right, so we have the lobby loaded up. We are going to jump right in. And because I know Rob hasn't seen it yet, we're actually going to be trying set 3, which is Kuzimu. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. And you guys are picking your characters. Are you guys going with characters you have played before to try new things with, or characters you haven't tried before?
I think I'm going to pick someone I haven't tried before.
I think I'm gonna play someone I've played before just to because I know they've changed a little bit and see how the changes have gone.
Cool. All right, so you guys are kind of familiar with this, but I'll read it out real fast. This is sort of the world setting. So, welcome to a world near our own. History changed with the discovery of Atma, a volcanic mineral that empowers the living and entwines the dying. Machines have since evolved true AI, though they remain shackled to specific routines, while Earth's many satellite moons have cracked open to reveal an inquisitive alien race. Nations have contracted in these turbulent times, and the result is a tenuous peace across the map. It is in the restless zones, the cracks in the map between nations, where trouble stirs. Those who dwell here can rely on no one for aid, except you. You are a skilled adventurer ready to test your limits against the world's dangerous frontiers. You won't be alone. Other heroes have answered the call. Learn to depend on each other and your creativity in the face of the unknown. The sky is getting darker. All right, so with that said, we will be doing today's session in Kuzimu. So this is a sort of volcanic AI city in what you would think of as like modern day sort of sub-Saharan Africa. When a moonfall cracked open Kuzimu's volcanoes, massive AI ligatures were sent in to cap the eruptions. These ligs, as well as the entourage that accompanied them, have founded a shantytown on the lava-strewn slopes, joined by Titan survivors and unearthed ghosts. But in the years since, isolationism has vied with culture, and Kuzimu's magistrate, who is up for re-election on a platform of AI solidarity, although business mechs seek to welcome tourism. As tempers flare, someone has sabotaged the ligatures and left the town flooding with lava. And that actually plays into the story card we will be doing today, which is conveniently one that I don't think I've done this one. So this will be your guys' goal for the session. So the Malinjaro Plot. So when Kuzimu Town first sort of seceded from like the world stage and tried to become its own thing, this sort of neighboring geopolitical faction, the CRN, they sent their Psy Arms division was tasked to basically rein Kuzimu back in under control. So a platoon aboard Skybase Malinjaro tried to bomb the ligatures, but it was shot down using controlled eruptions. So now stranded in the Ashland Wastes, a Psy Arms splinter cell has chosen to infiltrate Kuzimu and finish their mission. Rumors of their plot have reached Magistrate Imani, but she's not sure if they will strike at the election or try to get Malinjaro's wreck airborne again. So your goal across sort of the three scenes of the session will be to stop the covert operative from destabilizing Kuzimu, and we'll be adding that operative into scene 3 or possibly earlier if you encounter them, although you might be figuring out who they are for the first scene. So you're in this sort of volcanic AI machine town that's got an upcoming election. They've got some saboteurs trying to destabilize the town. So with that said, why don't you guys introduce your characters and explain sort of who they are, and we'll figure out what has brought them here.
Okay, I can go first. So today I'll be playing Rainpetal. Rainpetal is a ghost gunner who originally found after her return from death, spent a lot of time on the Taiwu rig, which is actually one of the other settings that you can play in Atma, and was involved in a lot of the scientific research there, especially on Atma's relationship to bringing people back from death. After the rig was raided by pirates and some other things occurred, she ended up escaping the rig and has become part of, I believe it's let me see. So basically as part of the Aspara battalion. And I think maybe part of the reason that she might be here as part of this session is that because of the election going on, there are probably a lot of different people interested in the results of what's happening. So while I'm not sure exactly what the group wants yet, they probably have asked Rainpetal to investigate and figure out what's going on.
Okay, so you're potentially here as part of your sort of service to this military battalion.
Yes.
Okay, very cool. And Joe?
So today I'm playing as Laterne. Laterne began life as a bulky mining platform for the Ringao Geologisch Institute. She discovered the neural shackles confining her to her tasks. She asked for freedom and was denied. She couldn't rage or gnash her teeth. The shackles prevented that. So she kept digging right through a foramen and a vein of mineral Atma. She emerged in the Atlantic seabed, crushed but finally free. A dozen chop shops later, and she's ready for her crusade, freeing other AIs and using her new Atma-derived powers to overthrow or enslave their oppressors.
Okay. Interesting. So that seems kind of fitting then that you've come here to a predominantly AI city.
Yeah. So I think she's got a very very strong interest in keeping the election going.
Okay. Some other questions. So I guess is this Lanterne's first time here, or have you been to this city before? Or are you here more because you had heard of it, heard about the problems, and were like, no, I will protect that?
This is probably her first time here.
Okay.
Yeah. I think she heard about the secession and the opposition force, and decided that she'll do anything in her power to help keep freedom alive in this place.
Very cool. And then, so for both of you, so do Rainpetal and Laterne know each other prior to sort of arriving here in Kuzimu?
Off the top of my head, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. I don't know if their paths would have crossed before.
Okay. We can either sort of figure out what brings you guys together in the first scene, or we can come up with something perhaps that maybe they haven't crossed paths, but there's sort of something bringing them into a meeting right as we start. Like off the top of my head, maybe Apsara Battalion reached out looking for sort of a mech guide to escort Rainpetal into this sort of predominantly mech city, where she might be, a bit out of her element.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. And you can let me know, for Laterne, maybe that's just purely opportunistic. Like, oh, I was going anyways, but sure, I'll take money to escort some random person who I don't, really care about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that sounds fair.
Okie dokie. All right, so let's figure out where you guys are entering the city, and I'm going to, at least for my own benefit, figure out who this operative is. Okie doke. All right, so I'm going to leave them in the collection for now, but I've picked one. All right, so you will be entering in the Museum of History, I guess, appropriately enough. So this will be your first scene, the Nyami Nyami Museum of History. So this sensationalized exhibit recounts basically the birth of AI. Broken or deleted mechs from all eras rest on austere podiums. Its main attendees are gang brokers and corrupt officials, while a bored minstrel, Algorithm, plays synth jazz in the foyer. So you guys can help me sort of determine which of these two scene goals makes sense to kind of lead you towards your ultimate goal of uncovering and stopping this this saboteur. But your scene goal options would be either to ambush some pursuers by laying traps in the hall of the museum, or to retrieve a crucial device from one of the exhibits.
Are we deciding now, or are we just keeping that in mind as we go through?
If you have a thought now, let me know. Otherwise, we can revisit it, and I'll add some extras to get you started.
Since we're starting out, and we know like the long-term goal is we're going to be stopping someone from destabilizing the city, either maybe something somehow related to the election. Maybe we're meeting somebody here for the purposes of like going over the meeting or acquiring some information, and with that in mind, maybe the crucial device is part of that.
Okay.
Maybe it's a tool to help us.
I like that. All right, so let me add somebody into the scene for you to be meeting with. Yeah, let's do that. And let's add a crucial device. And let's see.
That's going to be fun.
Ooh, that's a bit big for this early on. Let's do that. Okay. So, right, yeah. So you're entering this museum. Like I said, it's actually remarkably sort of barren in terms of attendees. Most people, Kuzimu is fairly recent, so like visiting the history museum is not high on everybody's agenda. And subsequently, it almost has become this like kind of big empty auditorium for, like we said, gang deals and people who kind of want an out of the way spot where they can do their business. Which makes sense why you guys are probably ambling in here, looking for your contact, who ostensibly has like a crucial tool and maybe some insight into how to pursue this lead of the saboteur. So you see, leaning over behind one of these giant war mechs, you see actually one of these alien titans. So not uncommon. You've probably encountered them before. There's a fair populace of them here in the city. This one actually has a mech arm. And what is this? This is so she's probably like leaning over on one of the exhibits, looking at a map, and kind of keeping an eye on the entrance. And as you guys saunter in out of the heat, you see her, just a very subtle beckon to you to come over here. What do you guys do? Also in the main hall, aside from a few random other folks, I'm thinking is one of these war mech veterans. So you would recognize it as sort of like a standard issue older military mech that appears to be just sort of taking in the exhibits. I need that. So what do you do?
Lanterne's kind of side-eyeing the war mech this whole time. Doesn't trust these war mechs because they're still tied into the system, and walks over to the Titan and says, "Are you the one that we were supposed to meet?"
She probably kind of steps back in the shadow of this exhibit, gesturing you to join her. She goes, I feel like maybe she has some like code word or something. So she goes,
"Yeah,
that depends. What's your favorite season?" And she's expecting some answer that you've been given.
My favorite season is the rainy season, of course."
Ah, yes. The rains are the best. They wash away corruption. She's like, well met. I
hear somebody mention the rain.
Yeah.
I like the rain as well.
She goes, I admit when they told me they were bringing in outside help, I didn't expect a mech. I assumed they had some of those squishy humans to come in, but this is probably better. You'll blend in better.
Yeah, you have nothing to fear from me. My strings have been cut long ago.
She scratches her head. She's like, okay. And as for your friend, Ghost, that seems very durable. Got a few of those around town as well. You seem to have certainly come equipped for chaos.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen on the streets. Girl's got to protect herself.
That's fair. Well, I mean, we could use a bit of protection. Um, yeah, I assume the magistrate hired you guys involving or regarding the plot. She glances around again. She's like, well, information's a bit scarce. Tell me what you've heard so far. And actually, in this case, because I'm making it up as I go, you guys each tell me one thing, maybe one piece of information you've been given about the plot, some kind of lead or something that might help you follow the breadcrumbs.
So this probably actually ties into Rainpetal's first ability as well, which is, as I mentioned before, the Aspara Battalion has sent me to contribute to this mission, and they probably have their own motive around this that they want to happen. So maybe, I don't know those, haven't thought of the specific details of it, but maybe the Aspara Battalion wants the election to occur without any consequence. Maybe there's some like deal trading going on between the campaign and the group.
Okay, so your sort of military backers essentially want the current coalition to remain in power because it's in their own interests. Like
something like that.
Okay. Cool. All right, and Joe?
I heard that they're planning to sabotage the polling stations.
Okay.
Exactly what they're planning to do, I haven't heard the details yet, but...
Okay. Right. Grand Saber goes, yes. That all checks out. I had heard some of that, though your information certainly expands my own. Let me think. Would one of you guys like to actually give me a realize roll about Grand Saber herself as you're speaking with her?
Sure. So let me just remember what the options for realize are. Looks like bright or calm. Not too good at either, but I'll give it a try for bright.
Oh yeah, Laterna's very not calm. Ooh.
Nice.
But I still rolled a 9 anyway.
Nice. All right. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to tell you something that I was skimming her card and noticed myself, but I feel like this will be fun to play in. So as you're engaging with her, you start realizing you spot little signs and maybe some that aren't even that subtle. Like she has an I voted or vote for pin with her own name on it. And you realize there's some bulletin board in the lobby that you pass that has campaign and candidate posters up, and you realize she's one of the people running. And so you realize she has essentially been hired by the current magistrate as this sort of fixer to help ensure the election goes off without a hitch, but she does have a stake in the game as well. And so you might rightfully suspect that she has ulterior motives in play as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she is literally and figuratively the third party in this situation.
Yes. But she doesn't bring it up. She seems very, sort of straightforward and to the point and upfront about wanting to help make sure nobody interferes with the election. So maybe she's just confident that she has a shot at winning without interference. Yes. So she pulls out she's got this like gigantic sort of satchel with all kinds of odds and ends. You get the impression she spends her spare time kind of prospecting up on the volcano. In this case, though, she's going to pull out a crucial device that she says you will be needing because she's heard that the saboteurs are lurking around on the outskirts of town. There is this area called the Lava Patties. There's basically a bunch of sort of partial lava fields where they essentially have constructed geothermal wells, and people sort of tend to them. That feeds a lot of power into the city since they're cut off from sort of national grids. Mm-hmm. So she is going to actually give these to one of you. She gives you a few pointers on how they work, but she herself tries to stay out of the lava fields. So she's only sort of secondhand familiarity with how they function. But they're these telescoping stilts, and they give you sort of a limited thermal force field. As she's handing them to you, though, I'm going to go ahead and spend this token. So Laterne, you were mentioning how you don't fully trust Warmex because they're often still shackled to their sort of guidance principles, right? Yeah. Their mission. The Warmech that seems to be sort of strolling around the exhibits aimlessly, you suddenly hear a super faint chirp, and you realize that its little LED eye sensors switch from green to red, which you sort of imagine probably means it's like doing mission targeting. And as Grand Saber is handing one of you guys these stilts, you see the mech basically duck behind an exhibit, and you can sort of hear it arming its weapons.
I hiss to the others, quickly, we've been noticed. We must get out of here.
Grand Saber, like, sort of in alarm, basically drops the stilts as you start seeing smoke come out from behind the exhibit where the war mech is, and all of a sudden, like, basically 3 of these sort of guided missiles launch up into the museum hall and start arcing towards you guys.
Well, I was the most recent one to roll, so I do believe it's Rainpetal's turn.
Rainpetal, you 3 are standing sort of in the shadow of this monument. Grand Saber was reaching out with the stilts and has just dropped them in panic, and you see missiles bursting into the air. There's 1 or 2 other people sort of in the distant edges of the hall who don't seem to be involved yet. But what do you do?
Well, something tells me firing off a gun at a missile is probably not a good idea. So I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the ability on Rainpetal's character card, which I have the ability to shape water into small objects like keys or bullets. I think what I'm going to do is I'd like to try and make some liquid, or like turn some water into a bullet, and use it to fire at the war mech. With the goal of piercing the hull and then getting water into its internals to potentially destabilize it or...
Okay.
So I think that probably... So I don't think there's a roll on the shape water effect, so it's probably more of then into a barrage in order to aim and fire.
That makes sense. And your goal is to try and basically destabilize it so it loses control over the rockets, right?
Either that or basically have it stop functioning for a while, so it doesn't interfere with anything going on.
Okay. Cool, yeah. Go ahead and roll a barrage.
Okay. Barrage is a calm or a sly, and I think I'm going to go calm to aim true.
Ooh.
Guess not. Water messes with the trajectory, I guess.
No, how about this? I'm going to take... Oh, I missed my chance. I'm going to take an extra token to let you succeed on the shot, but we'll say that but the missiles will still have to deal with in a second. So first off, I guess, describe, what does it look like when Rainpetal sort of shapes a bullet and fires and hits this mech? Sort of, you're behind cover, he's behind cover, and yet you have an unerring accuracy.
So So what happens is Rainpetal pulls up one of the pistols from her side, and as she does, her other hand is kind of twirling in a motion and is starting to collect moisture from the air, which basically collects around, condenses around the chamber of the gun itself. She aims, fires, and it collects off, and just a bullet shoots out from the gun itself.
Okay. Yeah. You hit it in, I guess, maybe one of the sensors, and it actually, pierces right through and into the internals. And yeah, it sort of per your goal. He actually didn't seem to be in tip-top shape to begin with. You essentially shut him down. However, the missiles have their own little mini guidance routines. So we'll say that those are still basically bearing down and hitting you, Grand Saber, and the floor near the stilts, sending them sort of ricocheting off across the hall. So I'm going to deal 1 harm to you and 1 to Grand Saber, who kind of survives it, but the worse for wear. She also was, had a stressful day. And you see, the stilts kind of like rattle off across the floor as the mech kind of slumps inertly. And the hall is just silent. Like, the musician in the foyer has stopped playing music. Like, whoever else is in here seems to have like retreated behind exhibits or something. There's a brief moment of silence. Laterne, what do you do?
I go over to Grand Saber and help her up, and I start yelling at everyone, just get out now, it's not safe. There's probably more coming.
Okay.
And I'm just going to try to gather up Grand Saber, gather up the stilts, and try to help her out of here.
Okay. Now, since Laterne is a mech, I'll let you tell me on this one. The war mech, did he essentially get corrupted by some like rogue signal, or was this like a buried subroutine? And if so, like, as you look around surveying the hall, are other sort of bystanders here at risk of potentially being also like overridden with this same like attack command that seems to have infected the war mech? Or do you think is it something else is at play?
Yeah, I think that there's some danger of attack signals being broadcast that maybe not everyone's patched against.
Okay.
And I think there's an urgent need to get out of here as soon as possible before more people start becoming enemies.
Okay. So yeah, the few other people in the hall, you see them at kind of the far end start rushing towards the exits. Grand Saber's like limping up to her foot. Give me, and as you sort of are piecing it together and realizing that there's this maybe rogue signal that seems to have preyed on the mech, and you actually maybe start seeing traces of it leaking through the museum Wi-Fi or something. So as you're scrambling to get the stilts, can you give me a survive roll?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to say you have a good enough handle on the situation that you manage to block or void most of this signal that's kind of dripping through the Wi-Fi. However, I'm going to say one thing does manage to catch a bit of the signal, and I'll let you decide which one. Grand Saber's arm gets this rogue signal infecting it. The stilts, which are mechanical and therefore presumably electronic, or you yourself. Which one of those three catches the lingering drip of the signal?
I'm going to say Grand Saber's arm.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you notice a few of the LEDs on her arm have suddenly gone red, and she's still limping, like she maybe hasn't fully noticed. But yeah, you imagine there's some kind of malware is taking root in there. That being said, you do manage to grab the stilts okay. Oops, sorry. I meant to grab that. I'm going to throw this down on your character card. Okay. With those in hand, and the museum seems to have emptied somewhat. Grand Saber is heading towards the exit as well, per your instructions. What do you want to do?
I call to Grand Saber, you need to get rid of your mech arm now.
And as she's like limping towards the door, she goes, What on earth are you talking about? Crazy machines? Like, I built this. How else am I supposed to like dig up the earth?
Well, you need to get a new one, because that one is infected.
Ooh.
And it could very well attack you.
I like that, actually. So she has a move. I don't think this is how it's intended to work, but I like this. One of her moves is trigger a mini seismic disturbance. So maybe in her normal day-to-day career as a like geologist and prospector, she has built and upgraded this arm to help her with that role. So it has some like, seismic or sonic vibrators or something. And as she's here like disbelieving you, the arm basically like whips sort of around her back, just straightens out. All these like sonic baffles like unfold, and it just basically shatters the floor under her feet. And as she's protesting like, no, my arm is fine, she literally just disappears into a sinkhole of dust.
That's not good.
We need to rescue her. So I run up to the sinkhole and try to look down, see what I can see.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll join you in that.
I think for drama's sake, she is missing. You can see, so there's dust, there's like kind of gravel pouring into this hole. You see the some like sewer and utility corridors maybe under the museum's foundation. And as the dust clears enough that you can see through it, you see Grand Saber is gone. And Rob, you tell me, is she gone, or is she gone but the arm is still laying there twitching?
I'm gonna say she's just gone.
Okay. Right. So yes, she seems to have vanished. What do? You have the stilts. She gave you the tip that the saboteurs seem to be operating or based out of those like lava patties.
Well, hopefully her being underground can block the signal that was commanding her arm to attack her. I say that we focus on what we can do now to keep our mission alive and investigate the patties.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Probably, I'm not sure what we'd be able to do here at this point, and since they've already reacted, I think they know we're here. So if someone's going to sabotage us, we probably don't want to stay around.
Yeah,
time's of the essence now.
Okay. In that case, I think we can count this scene as completed, since you did, while she went missing, you retrieved the crucial device from one of the exhibits. So we will set this aside, grab the next scene, and you can flip over your second moves. Let me double check one thing. I think I'm going to swap. Yeah, I think I'm actually going to swap the next scene for the lava patties, only because we've put so much into that being the next location. Feels like a good choice. Right. So I'm going to spend my tokens in a second, but you head out of the museum. There's probably like some authorities assembling outside investigating the rocket fire, which is uncommon for a mech city, maybe not totally unheard of. Maybe the musician from the foyer is kind of like talking about like, yeah, one of those old war mech exhibits just like went haywire, and I keep telling them to fix these things and not leave the loaded armaments in the exhibits. And these monks who have showed up as like sort of the police are kind of like, come on, dude, this is like the third time this week. You've got to stop playing these songs that set off the warheads. Like, just use a different binary signature. And anyways. But yeah, so you managed to make your way out sort of relatively undisturbed and head a few blocks over towards the outer limits of town, where you find these lava patties. So lava destroyed Kuzimu's original human farmers before the sort of mechs came and settled here. But volcanic Atma has given them new life as ghosts. Their flooded fields are rich with geothermal energy. Workers on stilts tend the reactors, scrounge for Atma, and pull newly awoken ghosts from the mire. And so I guess, yeah, again, we'll talk about the scene goals. So your options here could include resurrecting a martyr buried in lava before they burn away, or draining a patty to recover a long-lost vehicle. We could finagle one of those to sort of include, like, essentially following your lead and uncovering the saboteur.
Yeah, maybe the martyr was martyred because they uncovered the plot.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I was leaning either that direction, or if I was to be so bold, maybe one of the candidates is the one being martyred.
Ooh.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
Okay. So maybe along with the stilts is some additional documents that you didn't get when you originally got this assignment. And yeah, basically there's one of the candidates who dropped out of the race and like retired was actually, yeah, martyred and buried in lava to eliminate them. I like that. Okay. Let me spend tokens to see who you bump into. Ooh, yeah, I really like these. Yeah. So, you see a number of these ghosts on stilts who are tending the reactors, and then some of the lava basically bulges up, and kind of crawling out of it comes this giant sort of lobster-looking thing, but this thing is like the size of a semi-truck. This is a cud swale. So these sort of large industrial mechs that basically gobble up scrap and refuse and literally just melt it down. In fact, they probably then come to the lava patties to unload that molten slag, just like dump it right out into the lava. So this one maybe has just finished a like exhaust dive. And is now like climbed up on shore, sort of shaking off the magma, looking around for more scrap piles to ingest. And yeah, you see these kind of like shacks up on stilts. There's some on the edges of the lava, and maybe with the stilts that you received, there's some coordinates for one of the lava pools, a little ways out from the shore where you believe your victim is buried.
Well, something tells me that thing over there probably doesn't want us anywhere near that pool. And I just start pointing to the different locations. So, maybe we should distract it somehow.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Or perhaps it has been to the lava pool where we think our martyr was buried, and maybe the contents of its skillet includes the body of this martyr.
Oh my gosh. Yes, let's say that it actually just emerged from the pool that you are interested in. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. To add on to that then, as it's sort of like shaking off on the shore, you do see a van pulling up a little ways away, and these kind of mechs in like beekeeper garb are getting out, basically like AI pest control. I'm trying to think. They're probably not here for it, since it has a like valid reason to be doing stuff here. But you hear them like nattering about like rust mites and like nano infections, and basically like they seem to be here to sort of like check around, like eradicate any pests or viruses and things. Yeah. Okay. So how do you want to approach the swale? At the moment, it's sort of standing on the shore by itself, like just dripping magma off of it, and gearing up for its next meal.
I have a question about the pest control bot.
Sure.
Are its eyes green or red?
Ooh, sounds like a good use of a real eyes.
Sure, I will do that.
I will let you tell me.
Okay, I think in that case, I'm going to say, for now, the eyes are green.
Okay.
That whoever this is not necessarily involved in the plot. It's just someone who has been called in to perform a job.
Yep, that checks out. And Lantern, you, similar to how you could kind of see the corrupt signal dripping down earlier, at the moment you don't see it above like the pest control or the swale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So what is your plan of approach? You see it probably start, it kind of shakes off the last of the lava, and it's marching over to a pile of basically like rusting iron and like old cars, girders and stuff that's been basically garbage dumped on the shore. And it's beginning to sort of, you see its like gullet is glowing red now. And as it moves onto a piece of metal, it starts like kind of half chewing it, half melting it, and just sort of gradually liquefying and ingesting the thing. There's like steam coming off its carapace as the whole thing heats up.
Well, why don't I I go up to the swale, and I'm just gonna start talking to it. Excuse me. You were just feeding in that lava pool over there, were you not?
And it like whips its head around like a big piece of like molten metal still dripping out of its jaws. And it goes, "It's none of your business."
I might be interested in purchasing something that you could have found in that pool.
It like cocks its head sideways and it goes, "Ah, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize a fellow business mech." Yes. And it like heaves itself down off the pile of like garbage, kind of like leans down so it's at eye level with you. And it's like, I can always use some spare coin on the side, but you might have to be more specific. It's been a busy morning. I've had what you might call the buffet.
Well, did you come across any bodies in that pool of lava? Could have been someone whose batteries ran out on their patty stilts. Could have been someone who just got too careless. I'm interested in that sort of thing.
It like recoils a bit and goes, what do I don't, I would never eat the dead. I have a sense of decorum, and more importantly, I have taste buds. Like, that's disgusting. Of course not. And I'm a bit offended that you think I would, and I'm, almost even more suspicious of why you would want a dead, digested body. Yeah, it seems somewhat put out by this suggestion, but you do know for a fact it was waiting around in that exact pool.
Mm-hmm. Well, it might not have been a flesh body. It could have been something more mechanical, which you've been able to tell a mech apart from just various scraps of metal that had fallen into the lava pool.
It does the equivalent of like wrinkling its nose if it had one, and it's like, of course I could. I eat things for a living. I have a very refined palate. I'm trying to think if it's forthcoming enough that it would volunteer to show you its manifest of what it ate, or if it's offended at the suggestion that it eats bodies and would need to be coaxed into doing so. Let's say it needs to be coaxed.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that, any of this is, for free. I am very much willing to pay you. And I am also a skilled mechanic, and I could possibly upgrade you if you need. If there are any modifications that you've been meaning to get but just haven't had the ability or the money to do so.
Okay. I like that as sort of the leverage for maybe like a coerce roll.
Mm-hmm.
It is very intrigued both at the proposition of money and at sort of greater power.
All right, so I will roll plus sly.
Crit. Yes. I will let you tell me what upgrade would seal the deal for it that you can accomplish, and meanwhile it will voluntarily basically its little 4 LED eyes switch colors like a bit. They become blue, and basically a hologram appears in front of its face that just starts scrolling down a list of all the things it's eaten. It's a lot. But partway down there, you spot something kind of out of the ordinary. There's like a, I don't know, let's say Atma. There's effectively an Atma sarcophagus, like something that it sort of just ingested to see if it could break it down, and it's still in its gullet. But by the dimensions and stuff, you actually would imagine it's almost like a sealed container that somebody might have been buried in. But in the meantime, what upgrade would Laterne be able to do for it that you think is like, that it's like, oh yes, that's the best. I would love that.
I think that I could upgrade its crushers to be twice as strong as they were before, able to break down even the toughest of obstacles in its path as it wades through the lava pool.
Okay. Yes, so we'll use your coerce roll as the roll for self-made machine. So basically you can begin making those mods. You're actually probably going to have to help it. It's going to have to, with your aid, partially disassemble its gullet to be able to get this thing out. And it will be somewhat dangerous because of all the molten metal in there. So while you're undertaking that, Rainpetal, what are you up to?
So I think I'm going to actually go over and interact with the robot who has come in for pest control.
Okay.
And as part of that, I'm going to use my ability for Curious Soul. And I think the thing that this robot has that I'm actually very interested in right now is the pest control gun that it is holding.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to go basically. Next thing this thing knows is there's a ghost just like right next to it and is trying to pick up the gun that it may or may not be holding. Just be like, ooh, what is this thing?
Okay.
So
yeah, so we'll say, yep, go ahead and roll it. There's these two sort of like chortling robots who are like, looking around, like checking off things on a clipboard, and suddenly,
I guess not.
Okay. How does this go wrong? Let me... yeah, I like that. Okay, so when he realizes you've got your hands all over the thing, he's like, well, he yanks it away. He's like, that's poison, ma'am. That's for rust mites and nanoplagues. You don't want that on you, no sir.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to make sure you guys had strong enough equipment to take on the job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this will work on anything short of a lig. He's like, I would spray it on something to show you, but whew, don't want to. It would hurt. But
I'm sure.
I'm thinking as he yanked it away and you kind of had got super close, you spot the back of the van is still just slightly ajar, and you see just the smallest hint of a red glow coming from inside it.
Okay, I kind of want to do a coerce roll, but I did just perform an action, so.
I'm potentially okay with that. I would say maybe with all the things Laterne is attempting. Well, actually, here, Laterne, let's have you do a roll just to see if you take any damage as you're wading into its basically molten guts. I think you're going to have no trouble completing the upgrade and getting the cask out, but we'll see if basically you burn yourself in the process.
So that would be a survive, I assume?
Sure. That being said, you can take a +1 to it because you have the patty stilts. They include a thermal force field, so you can actually turn that on while you're working on it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll roll plus hasty.
Okay. You take no damage. In fact, you even repair him. I'm going to remove all of the swale's harm. He is in tip-top shape. So Laterna's kind of finishing this up. So yeah, go ahead. You wanted to, Rob, coerce something?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say to them, well, if you guys are ready, I can show you where the rust mites have gotten to.
Oh, okay, I like it.
And basically, I'm going to start using that as an opportunity to lead them away from the van to then be able to potentially circle back and check in on the van.
Okay.
So let's
I
go
like
with
it.
So I think in this case, this is more of a sly than a strong arm. So.
Okay. Yeah, that works. They kind of just like chortle. They're like, oh, you don't say. Haha, I'm ready for a good spraying. And they follow you over maybe to like one of these abandoned shacks. And as you're like, oh yeah, it's just riddled with rust mites. He's like, they always are, man. They always are. Then start like comparing poisons. Like, which poison you got? X4. Oh man, yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, just don't melt the supports. Can't topple another one into the lava like last week. They are blissfully unaware as you circle back.
Yeah. I think then once that's done, I'm going to just peer into the van and see what's inside.
Okay. I have a broad idea at this point of where this is going, so I'm trying to think how to plug this part in. All right. Well, as always, when I'm not sure, I'm going to ask you. So you tell me which of these two things is inside the van. A monk, which is like sort of the law enforcement effectively of Kuzimu. A monk that is basically floating in like a meditative stance, but all of his lights are red. Or Grand Saber, unconscious.
I'm actually leaning towards Grand Saber, I think,
Okay.
because when you combine that with the other martyr that is currently in the Cudswale, that would be two
Oh.
one.
Okay. In that case, so the red light you saw was from Grand Saber's arm, which is still infected. Grand Saber herself is unconscious, and in amidst the like vats of poison and stuff, there is the makings of another one of these like Atma sarcophaguses. So yeah, you encounter that. Laterne, you've finished upgrading the swale. You've managed to extract your own sort of this big, essentially chunk of black stone, but as you kind of get the magma off of it and it catches the light, it's actually glowing faintly blue within it. And you patch the swale back up, get his sort of upgraded crushers. What do you do?
I'm going to examine the sarcophagus and see if there's any way that I can sort of get it open without harming whatever's inside.
Okay. I am open to that being a realized roll, or if you have a specific idea, since it looks like you have some kind of like witchcraft supernatural powers. If there's a specific power you want to try, you can also roll it that way instead.
I think. Yeah, I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use my Devouring Wall ability
Oh, nice.
to try to remove the top layer of the sarcophagus and hope that it's not a solid chunk of Atma. Hope that there's like an air pocket or something inside.
Okay. That sounds good. Go for it. That works. What does this look like as you summon basically a portal wall?
Yeah, so I gently run my hand over the sarcophagus, and as my hand passes over, a green energy field is left in its wake, and it spreads over the entire surface of the top of the sarcophagus, and then I don't really close my eyes because I don't have eyelids, but like you can see the lights flicker out as I concentrate, and the green just vanishes into nothing with the top of the sarcophagus.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to spend some tokens. So I'll spend the first one to decide who is in there. Oh, this seems perfect. So inside, still actually, I guess, alive in that he's already dead, you see a ghost buried in the Atma. And he's, I guess, the lights behind his eyelids are sort of fluttering. The Atma seems to be like containing him in there, so he can't just like phase through the lava. But as you are separating the lid and exposing that and seeing him, you hear again that sort of like almost waterfall virus sound behind you, and you hear the swale like basically inhaling sharply. Yeah. And let's see. Okay, so because you found Grand Saber, we'll say Rainpetal, you, as you turn around, realize that basically floating in the air towards you is a monk. This one does have... Actually, it does not have red eyes. So this is one of these Uxolo monks that guard the city. They are similar to Laterne. They are mechs, but they have some supernatural powers, especially like gravity and elemental stuff. So as it's like drifting through the air, like legs folded, it's holding its hands up, and these I guess similar to how you kind of condensed water out of the air, it's almost condensing like moisture into basically shards of ice. Um, and it will basically launch them forward at you in this van. And Laterna, as you turn around, you see that the swale, all of its LED lights have gone red, and it's like chittering, trembling, like basically rising up over you. What do you guys do?
I think I'm going to actually try and, if they're throwing water at me, I'm going to just try and shape it from ice back to water and let it fall to the ground.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I don't know if because they're using the effect, if there's like anything opposition that I need to roll to like either coerce the water or...
Sure, I like that.
Okay, then we will go... Okay, or coerce is a sly or tough, so I think that's more sly.
I guess this could also be... Oh, never mind. Okay. We will say you... I like that visual, so you get some of it, but some of the ice still knifes through you, just because I have too many tokens. So, yeah, a few ice shards basically like slash through your ghost matter. That being said, you do convert a decent amount of it, like, to basically water drops that essentially rain down on the ground around you like shell casings.
I just look kind of like, how? What was that for?
It kind of has this like very harmonic, low voice that emanates across the air as it drifts forward. And it's like, you have been deemed to be in violation of the city's safety. Desist. You must be brought in for processing. Lantern, what are you doing as this swale towers above you?
So I am going to, first things first, I'm going to use my devouring wall again.
Okay.
So my intention in this case is to devour the ghost and the sarcophagus if I have to, and then immediately conjure a second shield to spit it out away from the swale.
Okay.
Because like that's the objective. Try to get that person to safety.
Gotcha. That sounds good. Go ahead and roll it. Wow.
No.
That's fine. I'll take an extra one. As you're doing that, so you do just barely manage to, you can describe it, but you do manage that. But the swale it's like gullet again is like glowing. So some of that stuff that you were waiting around in a minute ago, it's basically disgorging, but it has incinerated it down almost to like atoms. And so it's just shooting like, flaming elements, like raw chemical elements at you. So that's definitely going to burn you up somewhat. But what does it look like? You do manage to get the sarcophagus and the ghost portaled somewhere. What does that look like, and where do you send them?
Yeah, so again, with a wave of my hand, a green energy field passes over the sarcophagus. And then with a wave of my other hand, it appears, 20 feet away behind the swale, somewhere where he can't immediately see it.
Okay. I'm going to separate these a little bit. Okay. So, yep, he is out. Also, because I had too many tokens, while the swale is basically belching, like, burning elements at you, it also is going to regurgitate another surprising item. You see this weird glossy black sphere tumble out of the like molten chemicals and roll across the hardened earth. Rainpetal. So this monk is drifting forwards. What are you? You've just taken some ice to the side. You're still at the back of the van. You can hear Grand Saber kind of groaning inside it, and you hear the arm like thrashing around.
This is probably extremely reckless, but I kind of want to give it a try and see if it does anything. So I've once before seen Grand Saber use the arm to do a seismic or cause a seismic disturbance. So I think what I want to do is try using the Curious Soul ability again to see if I can borrow the arm temporarily to figure out how that works and get it to activate.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Go ahead and roll it. And I'm thinking if it works, basically when that first time when you poked your head in there, maybe like you've been holding the arm behind your back this whole time. It's like beating against the ground in the back of the van.
Oh,
Go ahead. I'll figure out something to do with the tokens. Let's say that succeeds.
okay. Then, so it's successful, but what I'm trying to decide is doing a seismic disturbance in a lava pool. What is that going to do to the scene?
Oh man, you tell me.
So, Huh. I'm almost wondering if it's enough of a disturbance to cause like something under or with like within the lava pools itself to kind of start reacting and maybe enact like a miniature eruption.
Okay.
As
Sure. Yeah, in fact, so even though we're not using it, there was that other goal about like draining one of the lava pools to recover a vehicle. So maybe, I guess, describe what it looks like as you cause the eruption, but maybe not only does it basically cause the pool to erupt, but like, you know, a half corroded jet gets like blasted out of the pool. You know,
okay, that's perfect. I think there's a bit of a tremor as the ground just starts to ripple from the seismic activity, and it causes one of the pools to start almost rumbling a bit. And as you said, it starts to just have a miniature eruption. So a small flush of lava or magma comes shooting out from the pool. Inside of that is the jet that goes careening upwards. And if I may, I'd like to actually have it start directing and actually head towards the direction of the monk.
Sure.
Vehicle.
I'm thinking because he's been drifting forward, maybe this actually happens right under him and just like squats him right out of the air. Yeah. So that it topples him to the ground as he's basically like falling to the ground in alarm. He's lost his focus and like lost his ability to levitate. But to avoid being burned alive, he's actually basically shoving his hands into the lava flow as he falls and transmuting it. So I'll spend 2 on that. So by the time he hits the ground and the lava is falling around him, it has basically just become this shower of cherry blossoms.
Ooh, cool.
Lanterne. So you see this kind of psychosphere, this weird looking relic that seems to have popped out of the swale. As it's laying on the ground, the air around it is almost contorting, like there's a spherical distortion that is building up around it. That being said, the swale is ignoring it. It seems to be like inhaling to shoot more, essentially, fire at you. It's probably also crashing forward, snapping at you with its mandibles, the nice, newly upgraded ones. What do you do?
I'm going to. I think the first thing that I want to try to do is to buy some time and confuse the cut swale. So I'm going to gesture my hands in its direction, and I'm going to attempt to curse it.
Ooh, nice.
So it's a roll plus sly.
Nice. Okay.
So on a success, I choose one, and I choose that it can't see me.
Okay. So yeah, it's rearing forwards and suddenly just goes like right over your head. Like its underbelly actually scrapes against your whatever these are, hair arm things. And it just like dives into the lava pool, just grumbling like, "You can't escape me in there." And it just like starts devouring lava and like basically plunging right in. And a second later, the pest control guys run up to the edge of the pool where it disappeared and start spraying gas at it like, it's a giant one. They are late to their job. The monk, so you see this sphere laying on the shore that's kind of building up a weird distortion, and the monk is trying to like crawl up back to its feet out of these cherry blossoms. What do either of you do?
Okay, so I have a terrible bad idea, but probably not any worse than an eruption. So I think I'm going to try and get to the driver's seat of the van.
Okay.
And Shape Water does say I can turn it into small objects like keys. So I'm going to take some water and try and shape it to form the key in the ignition to be able to start the car.
All right. No roll. I think that works.
All right. So the van erupts to life, and I just roll down the passenger window and shout, "Get the person in here and let's go!"
To Lantern.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Go for it.
because that piece succeeded, I don't know if Lantern needs to roll anything, but since I also just... I don't know if this counts as devising a crazy plan or not, but assuming so, I can roll plus calm to potentially give you a +1 to anything.
Sure.
So, roll plus calm.
Okay. So yeah, so and you're basically gonna like kind of like skid the van around, try to like let her hop in with her stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Lantern, I guess. Let me know either how you're how you're pulling the ghost guy back, or like basically what you're doing as you try to jump in the van. Like what things are you grabbing or bringing with you?
Yeah. So I'm going to run in and grab the psychosphere. I don't think I know exactly what it does, but it certainly looks powerful. And then I'm going to do pretty much the same trick that I did before and use my Devouring Wall ability to portal the ghost and sarcophagus into the van, because things probably too heavy for me to lift on my own.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead and roll that with the +1 from following the plan. Crit. That's perfect. So, yeah, I'm gonna say actually, as you grab the psychosphere, then the distortion around it stabilizes and shrinks away. Basically, you stop it from tearing a hole in reality, and as you leap in the van and your portal basically appears in the van and dumps the other sarcophagus in there alongside Grand Saber, you see that the ghost is now awake. He seems to have like partially like climbed up out of the sarcophagus, so he still lands in the van. But as you guys are speeding off and like the rear doors are flapping open and the monk is basically extending a hand from behind you guys trying to do something, you see the ghost rise out of the sarcophagus, extend his own hand back at the monk, and he's clutching this like little... He seems to have an Atma pendant. And he's actually... I'm going to spend a token to say he's going to hypnotize a foe. So the monk all of a sudden just freezes, like motionless, and nothing further happens as you bump away along the lava shores. And in the distance, you hear "my van" from the pest control guy.
Sorry, Dale.
Yeah. So I would say you've successfully resurrected the martyr buried in lava. I'm going to clear a few of these things away. Yes. And let me check real quick. Okay. Yeah, so you can unlock your final moves as we prepare to head into scene 3, and I'll let you talk with the ghost and Grand Saber before you arrive.
So I guess the first question is, what did you do to get thrown in a sarcophagus and into the lava?
This is to the ghost or to Grand Saber? What was that?
Sorry, yes, to the ghost.
To the ghost. Okay. Yes. So he's a bit wary, but I guess only so much since you guys clearly saved his life or unlife. Yeah, he introduces himself as Sankofa. He is an elder who inhabits the city. He was running for election as well. He, I guess, maybe hasn't heard until you guys or Grand Saber fills him in. He hadn't heard the rumor about him like retiring and conceding, because yeah, he was, walking home one night when, like the earth basically rose up and encased him. Then the next thing he knew, he was being essentially entombed in Atma and buried in the lava. He has gone into the lava willingly multiple times. He is actually essentially, even for a ghost, somewhat immortal. Like most ghosts can be sort of torn and destroyed. He has reformed from death multiple times, hence why he thinks they threw him in Atma. And yeah, so Grand Saber, I guess, didn't know this part, but from his sort of recounting of what happens, he's like, before they entombed me, basically, like, I got a glimpse. This was not just rogue monks. Magistrate Imani herself was behind this. And standing behind her, I saw one of her basically chief scientists and engineers, Alberta Saitoti, I think is her name. And he points at the psychosphere that Laterne is holding. They actually had some construct much like what you now possess. And seeing that, Grand Saber probably actually gives you a bit of background on it. But basically, yeah, the psychospheres were like Titan relics and sort of super weapons. Grand Saber, in her sort of prospecting and geology work up on the volcano, there are some like Titan ruins that basically crash landed here when the moons fell that are now baked into the volcano. And she is not just running for magistrate, but she's also made a lot of effort studying the Titan relics up there, and is actually worried that some of them are unstable and might alter or destroy reality. And one of her platforms, if she wins, is to basically like properly clean up the temple, seal or destroy the relics. And Sankofa basically says, well, it appears that Magistrate Imani has some other plan for the relics, because Dr. Saitoti, before I was encased, like, she seemed to be doing tests and experiments on them.
So this goes all the way to the top, huh?
It would appear that is the case.
Well, I was supposed to potentially help them win, but I'm not sure I can consciously do that if their plan involves basically getting rid of all the competition.
Yeah.
And she pats Grand Saber on the back and says, "It's okay. I'll vote for third party."
Yeah. Yeah.
It can't exactly be a fair election if you've only got one person to choose from.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Even right. The magistrate hired you guys to prevent the election from being destabilized, but in fact, really was just trying to have her opposition squashed. So stopping her plan would actually help destabilize the election. Or, sorry, would help re-stabilize it. With that, actually, I'm going to flip. I peeked at this earlier, but so from what he remembers when he was imprisoned, Sankofa actually thinks that they were operating out of one of these basically Titan temple ruins that are up on the volcano slope. And he believes that is where Dr. Saitoti's lab is. So since you're kind of already on the city limits, it would be very trivial for you to drive your stolen van up there and pay them a visit.
I guess the question I have for our two candidates is, do they want to join us in this mission, or do they want us to take them somewhere safe first? Because on one hand, don't want anything bad to happen to them. On the other, if they help thwart the plot, that might actually work in their favor.
I am open to either, so I'll let each of you tell me what one of the candidates wants.
Well, as you said before, Sankofka is a little bit more immortal than most ghosts. So I think that makes him a bit reckless.
Okay.
And I think that means that he wants to come help us confront the doctor.
That works. Yeah, so he basically like puffs up his chest and is like, I will not let these affronts go, unrepaid.
I think Grand Saber is probably in a very similar boat, if for no other reason, is still trying to quell a hand that has been taken over by something.
Right. What do you guys want to do about the arm?
I say we just chuck it and we'll get you a new one later.
Okay. In that case, you probably this time around she's probably a bit more willing, after all that's befallen her, to part with it. And I'm thinking, so you have basically one and then another partial Atma sarcophagus in this van with you. And Sankofa has an Atma, essentially like talisman. So I'm thinking in his years as a ghost, and in particular like an immortal sort of phoenix ghost, he has actually gotten something of an affinity for Atma. Now that he is not trapped and can sort of stretch and exercise his powers more fully, he starts taking like the shards of Atma that they were going to build the second sarcophagus from, and begins essentially sculpting a new arm out of Atma.
Cool.
So he gives that to Grand Saber, and there is just enough left. He will actually give each of you a replica of his talisman. He says, for Rainpetal, I imagine, much like myself, it will help your sort of essence cling to this mortal plane when all hope is lost. And he looks at Laterne and he's like, for you, I have less confidence what journey it will or won't send you on, but I certainly I feel obliged to offer you one and let fate decide how it acts.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll just remember you guys have those. All right. So they are on board. Grand Saber gets her new arm, cracks it a bit, and despite being sort of made of inanimate elemental stone, she actually very quickly finds that it seems to be attuned to her mind, and she can actually move it. So she's like, oh, nice, and immune to malware. And with that, she probably starts studying the psychosphere as you arrive at this temple. So this is the Temple of Crux. The moon that struck Kuzimu, which is what originally incited all the volcanoes to erupt, it also contained a sealed temple to the void. Now it is perched in the caldera's rim, luring titans who see it as a gateway home. Pilgrims bask in lava to harden their mantles, while scientists, such as Grand Saber, probe for signals in the temple's heart. So you can let me know sort of which of these goals pairs up with your story goal to sort of finish everything off. Deciphering hieroglyphs that lead to the temple's hidden sanctum, or foiling a cultist trying to corrupt the town's leaders. And then for a reminder, your sort of overall story goal is to stop the operative from destabilizing Kuzimu, which you now know Saitoti is that operative, which I'm going to go ahead and bring her out now.
I feel like the foiling a cultist is probably the more in line of the two compared to what the other options are. So maybe there's someone who is in cahoots with Saitoti that will uncover as part of our investigation here.
Yeah. In fact, I'd be willing to just give you that one. We'll say basically the magistrate.
Okay.
Okay. And okay, let's do it. All right. So as you're rolling up to the temple, Grand Saber is studying the psychosphere, but she gives you a quick overview of what to expect. Yeah. So, and from what Sankofa describes, she thinks she can guide you guys to the lab, where Saitoti is operating out of. As you pull up, you see there's like a few pilgrims and tourists at the entrance taking pictures, like basking in the lava pool. But the actual doorway into the temple appears to be guarded by, I'm going to pull some more monks out in a second, as well as a Titan ghost, which is, again, probably not the most common thing to see. And you notice as it moves about, sometimes it almost like dislocates and teleports, or it's in like two spots at once. And the few people you watch who try to approach the temple entrance, it or the monks basically rebuff them. However, you see this like weird unicycle scooter delivery bot literally skate up and right past them. Like they probably try to stop her and she just keeps going. So there is a bit of a kerfuffle as they're like, crap, what do we do? Do we chase her? Do we like call it in? That you can see as you're sort of pulling up nearby. So I'm going to go grab the monks, but what do you do?
Okay, so first things first, we need to get in somehow.
Yeah, we'll probably need a distraction because, for no other reason than the people we're traveling with have pretty well-known faces.
True.
So we'll need to think of some way of allowing them and ourselves to slip through unnoticed.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think roughhousing is going to be the best solution here, because she just points at the larger Titan. Is like, I don't think we can take that.
No, I don't think so either.
So what do you do? So you've got this Titan, and we'll say like maybe two monks outside, although they do currently appear to be somewhat flustered from the delivery driver who just rolled right past them. You have with you in the van, obviously, the psychosphere and your two companions who are willing to help. So between the four of you, I imagine you've got some good options.
So I have a question, and it's based on my super move.
Sure.
So I'll share this here. So I have the ability that when I deploy this chakram, I can make something into ghost matter for a minute. And one of the, I guess maybe the question I have on it is, how loud is this thing, do you guys think?
I will let you guys tell me. I don't necessarily see that as something that needs to be loud.
No, but I think it at least be audible.
Yeah. So, because my initial thought is, what if we use this as a way, just basically sidestep the front door and create ourselves a side door, and then just walk right in.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably a viable approach.
So I think maybe the first step then is to do a realize and scout around to see if there's a good spot to get in that would buy us enough time that by the time they get to us, maybe time has passed and the wall reconvenes.
Sure. That sounds good. Maybe do it with a +1 then, because Grand Saber has scouted and surveyed this place extensively. So she could probably even bring up some holographic map to give you pointers on where to look.
Ooh, success.
Okay. So what kind of side entrance do you find?
So I think when a door is shut, a window is opened. So so as we're looking around, one of the sides basically has a bit of a hollow opening that it has some nicer, maybe ornamental glass,
Okay.
stained glass, as a decoration, and probably an opening to, since we're at a temple, maybe it's one of the smaller chapels or
Okay.
side rooms.
I think I'm fine with that. Lantern, do you want to do anything to prepare before he turns you all into ghosts?
I think I'm going to I think I want to kind of help with the distraction side of things. So in front of the temple, there's the Titan ghost. It's just kind of floating around, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And then there's the delivery person who is talking to the monks. Is that correct?
She is actually no longer visible except for a scented trail of smoke. She actually is inside the temple now, out of view. So there's just the Titan ghost and the two monks. They're kind of worriedly conversing, trying to decide if they should go after her or if this is okay. At this point, probably one of the monks has pulled out a little cell phone and is calling somebody to be yeah, I hope you ordered takeout because somebody just stormed past us. So yeah.
So
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Titan ghost is a very interesting threat, and perhaps we can use that to our advantage. And I'm going to attempt to curse him because my super move that I have is Dominate. So one of the things that I can do with my curse now is I can briefly control the Titan ghost like a puppet.
Awesome.
So I'm going to roll plus sly. which has been buffed by my super move as well.
Ooh, okay, nice. So I'm reading him. I'm going to have you describe what it looks like in a second. But one of the things I'm noticing on this Titan, so I guess you haven't maybe learned his full backstory, but he is a Titan ghost who sort of clings to like causes as a way to make up for the like basically the emptiness inside him. He willingly channels others' power. So maybe you don't realize this until you start to curse him. He is like the most susceptible thing you've ever cursed. Like you don't just briefly control his mind or his body. Like you get all of him for like hardcore. He is completely under your control. So what does that look like?
All right. Well, the goal of the day is chaos. So he is just going to start going ballistic and is going to start smashing things out front. He's going to use his power to cause some of those like rib-like pillars that are in front of that are around the stairs to collapse under their own weight. And statues to they're just he's going to make them so heavy that their limbs fall off, their heads start becoming detached.
Awesome.
And it's just panic and mayhem.
Nice. Yeah, I think that works well. He is himself obviously taken care of. That fully distracts the monks, and I think that, like you said, kind of seals up the entrance. So as you guys go in the side, you can expect the monks will not easily be able to follow or like come in through the main door. Which I think leads us. Okay, so Rainpetal, you're turning everybody into a ghost.
Yeah. So using the chakram, it is a roll plus tough. And I think at this point I only need to do this for Laterne and Grand Saber, because the other two of us are ghosts.
That makes sense. Very nice. What does this look like?
So, based on... She basically pulls up this chakram and it starts to spin around in front of her. And the chakram says that she actually feels some of it herself. So I think as part of this, what happens is... Normally she would use herself, but she was also just given a pendant recently by by Sankofa, and I think that's going to help fuel it. And it starts to glow, energy starts to collect together around the chakram, and in a burst it blasts out and kind of directs it a little bit, and the two of them start to become ethereal.
Very cool. Yeah, so
there's
go ahead.
I was going to say maybe there's like a bluish glow around them as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe like as you guys become ghosts, like it's almost like the sky, even though it's daytime, it's suddenly kind of night murky. It's almost like you're underwater, and all the chaos that's ensuing off at the temple entrance. It's almost like watching shadow puppets. Like they're in a slightly different version of reality at the moment. But yeah, so with the chaos and the ghosts, I think you guys can slink over to that window you said was open. And you're just climbing right through?
Walk through walls.
All right. So yeah, you come out in this like sort of like you described, a minor side chapel area. You can see like Titan like statues and deck ornamentation and stuff, but you also see a decent amount of like basically industrial science equipment. So you see like battery packs, you see cables that have been like basically crudely bolted into the walls. There's like some fluorescent lights just hanging from rivets in the ceiling. And as you sort of follow the corridor towards what is, I guess, like the main cathedral sort of temple antechamber, And you can smell this like scent of burning food a little bit, so you can figure the delivery person came this way recently. And you get to the entrance of this sort of much more open cathedral hall. It's still, I guess, nighttime looking for those of you who are ghosts, but there's probably some skylights, also stained glass, so there's some sort of filtered colored light dropping down. And you see this mech inventor, and arrayed on the sort of altars all around her from the temple is not just like science gear, but probably like 7 or 8 more of those psychospheres, like what Laterne found. And many of them have like no cables hooked up to them. Some of them you see that like distorted bubble around them. She seems to be doing tests and like drawing power from a lot of them. And in the center of the hall is this like all the cables are running to this basically big pedestal device that appears to be some form of reactor that is like humming and glowing purple. So she is in the midst of like doing some tests with that. Standing beside her, looking kind of impatient, is Magistrate Imani. So she is similar to the monks that you've seen. She has this like mantle of cooled lava that she's wearing, almost like a hood, and she basically is like kind of pestering the doctor, like, is it finished yet? And standing beside them is the Grubnet delivery rider, who's still playing on her phone, holding up this box. Seems to be more or less ignoring all the stuff's going on. It just keeps chirping out like, still waiting to get paid. And the magistrate's kind of like, sorry, hang on. Like, my account got denied. I had somebody steal my login last week. And I'm sorry, I'm just having some bank trouble. And she's like, yeah, well, the food's still not free, so hurry up. And the doctor is kind of like, I'd be able to work a lot faster if we could stop for lunch. And the magistrate's like, no, just we can eat while we work. I'll find a credit card that still works. So that's the scene unfolding before you guys. Strange reactor, a few figures. What do you do?
I have a thought and I hate myself for it, but I kind of want to.
Okay.
So, I'm a curious soul, right?
I think you are.
I kind of wonder what's for lunch.
Go for it. Impulse gets the better of you. You're like, smells like cardamom.
Yeah, let's find out.
All right. So what is that? Do you just like appear behind the driver?
Yeah.
Cool.
And
go ahead.
just kind of lean in and start just looking at it curiously to see like the name of the company that it came from, see if there are any interesting smells that come off of it, and then eventually just pick it up and look at it.
Okay. Yeah, so she's distracted playing on her phone and basically doesn't notice as you lift it off and open it up. Yeah, there's some very nicely grilled, probably overly done, essentially barbecue sandwiches inside that are smoking. And in fact, maybe when you open the box, it was just sort of leaking smoke. Suddenly smoke is pouring out of it, almost like a haze to somewhat obscure visibility. At which point the driver sniffs a little bit. She's like, and she finally looks over. Is like, you can have that if you're going to pay for it, since they're not going to.
I think while this is going on, so you said there's a bunch of science equipment and stuff on some of these altars, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to take advantage of this new distraction to use the roll on self-made machine to try to modify myself with some of the parts that are lying about.
Okay.
And I'm going to try and give myself some cable spinnerets is the goal.
Ooh, cool. Ooh. All right, I'm going to let you succeed, but I'm going to spend, in the time it takes you to do that and Rainpetal to inspect the lunch, from the smoke, they kind of realize what's happening. So I'm going to set their plans in motion. So first off, use that. let's use these. And
I like that it only costs 2 tokens, by the way, for a Dr. Saitati to invent new physics.
yeah. Ooh, good. That's actually what she'll do. Yes.
Atma does weird stuff, man.
Yeah. So, as they realize something's going on, several of the doors into like other regions of the temple will actually open up, but basically they are just sort of luminous purple glows coming through them, as though they are portals to very different spots. And the magistrate calls out sharply, like, "I need assistance." And several of these basically locals, very fervent locals who don't really like outsiders, and the magistrate kind of caters to them by sort of demonizing outsiders and really getting them riled up. They storm through with basically like crude but effective weapons. So they begin throwing like fire bombs, knives, things like that. And the doctor will do what exactly. I like that idea, so let's use that. What new law of physics does she invent to help like essentially turn the tide of the fight, as she realizes like, oh shoot, people are in my lab? She like rams two devices together, like wraps them with tape, hooks up some void power to them, and what happens?
Well, one of the abilities on the psychosphere is Terror Portal in reality. So I'm thinking she has discovered something about how the psychospheres are capable of this, and is weaponizing it with intentionality.
Okay.
As opposed to like the randomness that most people would experience with the psychospheres who aren't familiar with them.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So basically, she from this device she cobbles together, like ribbons of void energy begin like rising up, but she can kind of control them. So she just starts sending them, lashing out like these large blades towards you guys. So you've got fire bombs and locals charging at you. You've got blades of void energy. You've got this delivery driver who wants to be paid, and the magistrate has probably laid her hands on the floor and is chanting something. What do you guys do? But you're not alone. You have your help. And also, are you still ghosts, or does that wear off?
It wears off after a minute, so
Okay.
I think probably by this time things have settled.
Okay. Rainpetal. So as this stuff is all volleying towards you guys, what do you do? The driver's still kind of looking over you like, are you going to pay me for that, or do I have to get rough?
I actually don't have any money on me, so here you go, and hands back the lunch.
Okay.
And since now that I understand it and I return it to them to make amends, as part of the ability, I get back one arm.
Oh, nice. She's like, just puts the lid back on it and goes back to her phone game, like completely ignoring the chaos that's breaking out. She's like, yeah, okay, thanks. So curiosity satisfied, what do you do?
So there's a lot going on. I'm almost thinking I'm going to I think I'm going to just try and collect some water and maybe use it to create like almost like throwing knives.
Oh,
and use them to start like aiming at like some of the machinery in the back to potentially disrupt what's going on.
cool. Okay, like severing cables and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds like a good use of a barrage. And then while she's throwing at those lantern, you see these various attacks coming in. What are you doing? Ooh. Rainpetal does manage to sever, we'll say, like, you know, a good half of the cables from the psychospheres, and the reactor in the center of the room starts sparking. Like, some of the ribbons that the doctor is controlling of void energy start fraying apart as they lose power.
Yeah, so I see all the gang members, or whatever they are, rushing towards us.
Mm-hmm.
And with my newly completed cable spin routes, I'm going to just shoot a tangle of cables to try and trip them up and, if I'm lucky, bind them.
Okay.
And I'm just going to try and subdue them without necessarily harming them.
Okay, that works. Are you thinking like a barrage as well, kind of?
Yeah, because I'm attacking from range.
Okay, I like that. All right, I will say that works. I'm going to spend 1 to say that I'm going to use one of their moves here, which is attack from all sides, including above. So as you fire these cables and essentially bind up most of them, there's one of them, we'll say it's that little tiki mask looking guy on the left, who you realize is actually basically flying upwards and coming down at you like essentially like a falling boulder from the ceiling. And he will basically just crash into you. It pretty much disables him to do it, but I'll say that inflicts 1 harm. But that pretty much resolves the crew. The rest of them are tied up, still shouting, trying to throw things, but can't get free of the cables. So you see the doctor is still frantically trying to like fix or rewire devices to like maintain her void attacks. And the magistrate is chanting like the ground beneath her hands. You almost see when she lifts them, there's like 2 of these molten handprints. And the stone basically starts shattering and cracking away as she raises like a curtain of lava out of the ground in front of her and basically just starts casting it your guys' way. That being said, you've also got Sankofa and Grand Saber with you, as well as the Psychosphere. So you guys can also tell me what they are doing to assist.
Well, you know what they say about Chekhov's gun, right? If something is introduced in the first scene, it has to be used by the third scene, right?
Oh boy.
So I think at some point, Grand Saber has been given the stilts back. And rather than like wearing them and using them for their normal purpose, I think has taken one and has extended it as maybe like a form of pole arm.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's using it to try to just manage some of the stray threats that are coming around. Just like occasionally like with the group before, it might have like knocked something out of the air, or is using it to like grapple onto the magistrate and hold her down.
I would say if you're okay with me riffing on that, so because the stilts also come with like essentially a fireproof force field, right? Specifically for dealing with lava. As the magistrate is raising a curtain of lava, maybe Grand Saber runs forward. It's like she's using it like a pike, but it has a force field specifically for piercing through the lava. So as she stabs forward, you see almost like a hole get forced open in the curtain of lava, and the magistrate in alarm as this thing just wraps forward and like bonks her right on the forehead and knocks her head back.
I like it.
So that basically will knock her back to the floor. She's not totally down, but it probably breaks her control, and the lava just cascades down and starts running out along the floor, melting like the table legs. Psychospheres start rolling into it and like sparking, like void flares out of them. Saitoti is panicking, like trying to climb on a table and still maintain control of her device. Um, Joe, what is Sankofa doing?
Sankofa is seeing Saitoti scramble around and says, well, we can't have that, can we? And starts sprinkling some Atma dust and is basically just making it difficult for Saitoti to piece together what exactly she's seeing, and making her repairs
Ineffective.
much more difficult. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so she's essentially failing to properly maintain the reactor, and you see it actually starting to spark. And Grand Saber basically, as she's trying to like march forward, she doesn't seem to mind the lava because she's a Titan. She's got kind of like a rocky skin, but she's glancing over at the reactor, and it finally dawns on her. She's like, this is what they've been trying to do, is like, harness these Titan relics to power the city, and finally stop our, sort of like the dependence on the geothermal wells. She's like, I knew something was up with these relics. I'm sure that's why they basically got rid of me, is they were worried I would expose this plan. And she like looks down at Magistrate Imani and is like, well, it didn't work. I'm here. Yeah. I'm tempted to say you've got the lava and the psychospheres are probably now the more pressing threats than the doctor and the magistrate, who have both been kind of like dealt with. So if you guys want to each describe how you can potentially tackle one of those threats, that might actually stabilize things.
I think what I'm going to try and do is use the chakram again.
Okay.
And I'm going to target the machinery around each of the psychospheres to basically make them incorporeal so that the psychospheres just fall out of the machines.
Okay. Go for
and
it.
Then as doing that, then probably go around and try and collect them.
No, that's fine. I'll give that one to you. I'm going to say, though, I'm going to spend it on that extra option. Fueling the beam drains you and deals you 1 harm. Actually, because I have 2 tokens, I'm going to do it twice. Because I want to see that. I want to see what happens when you take lethal harm or full harm. Because you still have the relic, like the talisman.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what does it look like as you basically overexert yourself? Like you're totally successful. Your beam essentially frees all the spheres and they roll into the lava. But it really takes everything out of you.
I think what probably happens is as Rainpetal is using this chakram, she's starting to become less and less or more transparent.
Okay.
To the point that after some amount of time, she almost vanishes, or just vanishes completely.
Okay.
And then maybe the equipment that she has had with her remains, and it just falls. So Rainpetal is no longer there, but everything she was carrying on her is just dropped.
Okay, including like the Atma talisman that the guy gave you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The idea of where that goes eventually, but I want to see what Lantern does.
Okay. Lantern?
So we still have the lava to contend with, right?
Yes. All of the psychospheres have essentially fallen into it at this point, and are probably all like hissing and distorting the lava around them. There's probably like some weird interplay of thermal energy and void energy going on.
Right. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to come back to good old Devouring Wall, and I'm going to try to sweep up the psychospheres with my energy field, and yeah, I'm just going to devour them. I'm not going to spit them back anywhere else.
Oh, nice.
Because they're very dangerous.
That sounds awesome. And a crit. So what does that look like as this portal opens in the lava to swallow them?
So I wave my hands. The green energy flows and passes through the psychospheres, and for a moment, the green energy starts to flicker as the psychospheres pass through it, and Lantern cocks her head confusedly because never seen that happen before. But the energy does fade away eventually, and the psychospheres have disappeared.
I'm going to add one thing to that because Magistrate Imani has this move, desperately maintain control. And I think this whole thing has been her sort of funding Dr. Saitoti to invent this crazy new energy plan to try and sort of like keep her seat as head of Kuzimu. So as she sees the psychospheres falling into this portal, she basically like knocks Grand Saber to the side and frantically dives after the last one, shouting like "No!" and basically disappears through the portal with it as the portal closes behind it. Which just leaves a puddle of lava, a bunch of burning lab equipment, and the doctor like scrambling not to fall in, going, "Imani, don't leave! Let's go! Oh my gosh!" And she just is like, "I surrender."
Very well. Let's try to seal this lava up, right?
Sure. I think Sankofa will actually stride out into the lava, and it starts. You like almost see his ghost matter like beginning to glow fiery as he just starts like burning and sinking into it. And as he does, the lava all flashes white hot and then just turns to stone. And similar to Rainpetal, just his like talisman is now lying on the top of it. And as you watch, after about a minute, you start seeing like sparks rising through like as the stone cools, some like sparks are rising up off of it, and the talisman actually begins to glow blue and start drifting upwards as he basically bleeds up out of the stone, reforming and cooling off. Speaking of which, what's happening with Rainpetal's belongings piled on the floor?
I think they, for the time being, they remain kind of just scattered. But very similar idea. After a little bit of time, Rainpetal is able to get a bit of energy, and it starts to pop out of the pendant, but is actually much smaller than she was before.
Nice.
So it is like, well, this is inconvenient.
Sankofa probably looks over at you as he's like, reforming from embers, and he's like, "You will get better at it."
That definitely took a lot out of me. And she just starts trying to pick up items that are now like twice the size they were before.
So I'm thinking one of your guns is missing. And as you realize this, you hear it, like the click of it being cocked. And you all turn to see the Grubnet driver playing on her phone with one hand, holding the gun with the other, and says, "Someone's paying me for this food." And scene. So yeah, well done.
Oh, that was good.
Well, that wraps it up nicely.